called in the past, wrote in the earlier edition of your book about the need for what you call a digital Geneva Convention. You mentioned earlier that the rules of war have long regarded attacks on civilians, on hospitals, on basic infrastructure as appropriately being outside of the realm of conflict. You've been pushing this idea, but we're still not really much closer, near as I can tell, to actually making it happen. And I wonder, Brad, what you see as the obstacles, including the U.S. government, which still seems to be wary of the idea in trusting in a convention like this that it's not sure others would obey.
Yeah, I think the sobering fact of life is that unfortunately the world typically comes together to do what needs to be done only after it has experienced some kind of natural or human created disaster. World War II is the classic example, and it's no coincidence that it took that war and then 4 years of work in 1949 to bring the world together and adopt the Fourth Geneva Convention. And the principle to me is both compelling and straightforward. As you mentioned, David, it says, even in times of war, governments will take care not to cause harm to civilians. And to me, it's just something we should think about constantly. If we said we won't harm civilians in a time of war, why should we for a moment tolerate this kind of harm to civilians in what is supposed to be a time of peace? Now, I gave a speech 4 years ago, and it wasn't at the end of the equivalent of World War II. So, I would say we've been raising awareness, building support. I do think that it is such an important time for the US government now to lean into this in a bigger way. The Trump administration was an administration that was not enthusiastic about multilateralism in any form. But multilateralism and multi-stakeholderism moved forward. There was the Paris Call that was adopted in 2018. 76 governments around the world have signed it. More than 1,000 organizations have, but not yet the United States government. And I think that would be a good first step for this administration to say we are rejoining the rest of the world, and then to build from there. Let's not wait for a disaster before what frankly we all recognize or should recognize needs to be done, and that is to put some of these kinds of attacks off limits.